damaged. It's hard to. It's all you can really hear is that weird rhythm.
I know, and he knows all those little inflections that no one does in blues or anything anymore. And he kind of rides. I just made a record with Jimbo that's coming out next year, which I'll send to you, called These 13. But it's just a duo record. Kind of. I wanted to do like a Mississippi Sheiks kind of Charlie Patton thing with him, and it kind of goes from country blues to churchy early country music.
Huh.
And we wrote a bunch of these songs together.
That sounds great.
That was fun to kind of go back and finish that thought, because I really got into, in my early 20s, because I was living in Chicago in Uptown, Edgewater neighborhood, and near the Green Mill, and this jazz club, and I was really immersed in it in my 20s, listening to this radio show called Blues Before Sunrise.
Right. You listening to all the old 78 style stuff.
He would play 78s from midnight till 4 a.m. of Dixie Hummingbirds and just all this really obscure Southern music. And I would tape it. I'd stay up as late as I could, and I would tape them and fall asleep and turn the tape over and keep taping it. And,
it's so wild to me that because I listen to, there's definitely a point, I can hear that stuff in the music, in the early stuff you did, in the first 3 or 4 records. And I could see that it was its own thing, its own time zone, that there was, it was a thing. You were doing a thing. And I don't know if there was a community around it, but I knew the style of music you were playing. But it was almost felt like that period in America where it's like everyone decided it was time to swing dance. I was like, there's a point where the music is great, but I started wondering, and I imagine you did as well, how far am I going to go with this?
Oh my God. So I was sitting there sitting at a bar with, where they're having swing dance lessons. And people are smoking cigars and drinking martinis.
Right.
And it's like, the music is just another accessory to a lifestyle trend.
Like a novelty.
Yeah. And I thought I was in it because I thought I was fascinated by the music, and I was kind of enchanted by the era.
Yeah.
But I did start to see that it was a dead end. First of all, why listen to me play it when you can listen to Grappelli, honestly?
Well, but I don't know that many people are going to make that jump, but just as a young and sort of creative person, to be lumped into a trend becomes sort of problematic, because then it's like a goddamn costume party. And nobody's necessarily appreciating the music other than the novelty of time travel.
Exactly. Yeah, and we would show up to gigs, with Bowl of Fire, and they would say the promoter was trying to get people in the door, so he'd put out a sign that says swing dance lessons to Andrew Bird's Bowl of Fire. And my tunes had so many twists and turns and stops and starts and tempo changes and everything. People would just stop their lessons, and they'd be like, look at us like, what are you doing?
What's happening? You're like, we're doing the thing that we came here to do, you fucking weirdos.
But I was in my early 20s, and I was still a student.
Sure. I understood that. I understood that by listening to it. But what was fascinating to me in listening to whatever shift you made, it's fairly dramatic. From after, from Swimming Hour to Weather Systems and beyond, you reconfigure your entire approach.
I kind of look at it I was started off in New Orleans with the first couple records, literally.
Yeah.
And also as far as the locus of the music, and kind of went up through Memphis or Detroit to Chicago.
Uh-huh.
And with Swimming Hour. And by the time you get to the end of Swimming Hour, I'm kind of on the cusp of, I'm playing with, more modern pop, whatever things.
But that's right. So Swimming Hour, right. So Swimming Hour is sort of it's a little all over the place.
Yeah.
Stylistically. Like, there's a rock tune on there, there's an old timey tune, there's a blue tune, like, right?
For sure. And then I got a little tired. I thought I've got more to say than, hey, isn't this old music cool?
Right.
And
I felt that.
I'm going to write some original. I mean, I was writing original lyrics. There's not much between some of the old songs. When I got a little better at writing lyrics over the years, but still, I felt like if I'm got your attention and I'm singing words, let's talk about something interesting instead of like, typical old-timey stuff. But I started stripping away all the things I saw as like stylistic, cinematic references.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, I even challenged myself, like, how few chords can I get away with putting in this song? How few little inflections? Because I kind of put the band aside, playing with other people for a while. I moved out into the country, into a barn, and so I had to really physically isolate myself to get away from other musicians' record collections and my own. And I, spent weeks and weeks without talking to anybody. It was a little extreme.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I needed to go that far, but and I didn't bring any records with me. I was just living in this barn, looping my violin all day long. And
was anybody concerned?
I thought my friends were going to come visit me, but I forgot to remember that they didn't have cars.
Oh,
any of my friends.
So you're just stranded out there with your looper?
I was 3 hours away from Chicago on a farm. My parents lived like 6 miles down the road, and I just would get up and make coffee and play till the sun went down.
And that's where you found it?
Yeah, I was really looking for something. I was little things from my collective experience would bubble up in the song, in the songs, but otherwise I was trying to strip away all the distractions.
And so you arrived at the base of your voice.
Yeah.
Huh. I can hear that.
And that's when people started calling what I do indie rock, and that was confusing to me.
I saw someone describe it as Baroque pop.
I can see why you might get that from some tunes, where there's a slightly, orchestrated nature to it. But it's a lot. I think of it as a lot rougher than that, especially live.
Sure. Well, what do you call it?
God, if you could think of something and tell me, you'd save me a lot of trouble.
Oh, so you got nothing.
People's eyes glaze over when I try to.
Well, I mean, but it's sort of like there's bands like there's something like it seems that as you evolved, like I think it's interesting that you had stripped it all the way down, because what you kind of end up with when you build up from that is, I think a way of organizing. Like there's some elements of what you do later on that reminds me a little of Philip Glass, even, and how the beat and the rhythm is organized. And certainly that kind of world of like, some, the American music of David Byrne as well, post Talking Heads, before the Brazilian stuff. Like, I don't know what you would call that either. So I think you're in good company.
Yeah. I got, with the looping kind of pushed it in that minimalist direction. And then the pizzicato, I would find these 3-against-2 sort of polyrhythmic patterns just from improvising. And that was the cool thing, is that once you get rid of the band for a minute and the bass, drums, and guitar all kind of creating something together, and it's just me like creating my own bass lines that don't make any sense according to what's been done before.
Right.
But makes sense to me at the moment. I think that might be where you're getting like the Steve Reich and or Philip Glass and the West African kora music is another big influence. I love music that doesn't conform to the 8-bar phrase.
Right.
that'll turn the beat around like Charlie Patton. It just doesn't care or never, was indoctrinated fully into the whole, basically the 8-bar phrase, which is
right. There's no turnaround.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You can just John Lee Hooker it. Just stay on the one thing until just stay on the E until you feel an A, and don't feel pressured to stay in the A for very long if you don't want to.
I know. I love that stuff. That's what Jimbo does so well. That even the 12-bar blues is like, why is that such a thing? It's like the really cool stuff doesn't conform to anything you'd call a 12-bar blues. Sometimes it's just like a hymn, but it just, like you said, it doesn't go to the 4 chord. It doesn't.
Oh, it's all from that gospel stuff. I was talking to Bootsy Collins the other day. It's just like, you can just stay on the 1 chord. You can stay there all day long if you want.
Yeah.
But it seems like you kind of landed on something that's uniquely yours, which is no easy trick,
Yeah, it did take some extreme measures to get there.
Sounds like it, but it doesn't sound like you had to, destroy yourself. They weren't Dionysian, unless you're not telling me something. They were more sort of isolating and repetitive and kind of immersion. But you didn't have to go out and get all fucked up, did you?
No, but extreme states of mind do tend to get you somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether it's extreme fatigue or emotional stress, even.
Yeah.
Or just what I did was a deprivation chamber for a couple of years.
Mm.
And yeah, but lately it's just kind of, I did have something to prove after I came out of that phase of like, to get away from all that association of that swing, whatever lifestyle. It took a couple of years to like wash my hands of that.
So which album do you think it was the first You record, the Mysterious Production of Eggs?
No, the Swimming Hour. I mean, not the Swimming Hour, the Weather Systems.
That was like, but that's where you really feel like this is what I've been doing. This is what I yielded from my submersion.
Exactly. That was just before I tried to make Mysterious Production of Eggs out at the farm, but I hadn't shed the city yet.
Right.
And I tried to make it, and it was a disaster, and I scrapped the whole thing, and I went and made Weather Systems instead. And no one understood what I was doing. The engineer I was working with was like, "This doesn't seem like you," or something. He was just confused. And I stuck with it, and I had to do that mostly by myself.
Did you think you were losing your mind?
I did when I couldn't make Mysterious Production of Eggs successfully. It took me 3 tries to get that album.
What now? Like, only you know what's going to make that right. And you made another record. So what was it that was hanging you up? Could you see the obstacle, or were you concerned that like, maybe I'm making this obstacle up and my brain is like falling into itself?
Weather Systems was this more ambient thing where I was just exploring textures and patterns and stuff. And it really had no pressure to it. Like there was no expectation. I put it out. I didn't even put it out on a label. I just kind of self-released it. And Mysterious Production was way more ambitious. It's all about childhood, and it's almost a concept record. And
okay, so you had an arc.
It's about like, I had like a real something I was trying to impart, but I didn't have the skills yet to do it. So I get it, yeah. And it never works. So I made Weather Systems. I think, trying to make it like with the band, like my old City Life didn't work. And then I said, I'll try to make it like Weather Systems, and that didn't work. And then I finally went to L.A. to work with this engineer, David Boucher, and then that finally worked. Just need the right collaboration and a little time. Yeah, and a little bit of like coming out to L.A. I was like, this is. I guess people come out here to get paid because they're good at their jobs and they work like from 10 to 6 or somewhat normal hours.